Want to learn how to transform your plain bedside into something a bit more special? Continue watching. Hi and welcome to my channel, Selena Style Designs. I'm Selena, an interior designer and stylist based in Sydney. Over the last few months I've been flipping furniture, and if there's one look and style that I have loved working on, it's the coastal look. It's clean, refreshing, and adds a little bit of personality to a space. So today I've got a video where I'm showing you the process from beginning to end in how I transform these slightly outdated bedsides into modern beauty. So if you're interested in learning this process, continue watching. Nightstand and bedsides are one of my staple sellers for when flipping furniture. So anytime I'm at a thrift store, it's one of the things I look for. I discovered these great bedsides for $35 for the pair. That was a great price. They're in really good condition. They're very solid and durable. They had these really great side paneling details that were perfect because I'm envisioning the coastal look for this. So I grabbed these and brought them home. I sat with these bedsides for a few days just trying to think about the colour scheme, and then once I had that locked in, I was going to go for a very soft grey. I could get started on step one, the sanding. A lot of the times you'll find bedsides have two different levels on the top base, and here I'm just sanding down the top two levels together and blending them so that way it looks like one solid surface, and this I find just gives a nicer, cleaner look to the overall piece. Here I'm highlighting one of the bedsides completely sanded back, and you can see that this timber grain was really rich and lovely texture underneath, and I can't wait to stain this top. Here that I've blended the two timber levels together. I just find it gives it a more solid look, and it's great if you're trying to get a higher profit margin because people want something that looks more solidly constructed and finished. So this is a technique that I've applied to most of my bedsides when I'm refinishing and flipping them, and I find that it's a really effective way of just getting more for your money on these pieces. After having sanded both bedsides now, I can move on to my last sanding grit, which is 240, and this gives a lovely smooth finished top. Now with all the sanding complete, we can move on to step 2, the conditioning. Because raw timber is quite porous, I want to make sure I'm getting an even absorption of the stain. And to ensure this even absorption, I always prime my timber beforehand, but this is definitely optional for you. With the timber conditioning now applied, I can let that dry and move on to step 3, the cleaning. I encountered a snag on the second bedside. When I was trying to remove the knobs, they actually wouldn't budge because they actually had glued them to the drawer front. So here I'm just knocking them out with a mallet and a flathead. I tried hand sanding this at first, but it wasn't enough, so I then moved to an 80 grit sandpaper just to ensure these front drawers had a very even, flat surface to paint on. Now we have finished all the prep work, we can move on to the fun part, the painting. So here I'm just using my favourite chalk paint called Porter's Paint, and it's beautiful to apply, it's really rich and lush, and this one here is called Grey Fox. So it is mostly a grey, but it does have a slight blue underbase. Grey Fox is one of my favourite colours. It is such a great neutral that it can pair with so many different styles such as boho, coastal, Hamptons, country. The possibilities with colour are quite endless. So for today's piece, this grey is going to be the perfect look for that really soft and subtle coastal look that I'm going for. If you're a regular furniture painter and flipper, you want to find a colour that is really versatile and that can pair with so many different styles. So finding a good grey is actually a great investment. After letting this dry for an hour, we can move on to our last coat. Because this chalk paint is really quite thick, you can see that the coverage is incredible. I only need to go into 2 coats, and the third will be a touch-up on places that I've missed. With the bedsides now painted and drying, we can move on to the magic step. This is where it all starts to come together. This is one of my go-to timber stains to use. For me, this stain works well because it really reduces the yellowness of the timber tone, and as a lot of the time I'm working with pine wood, you're going to get more of a yellow-based timber, but I want to make sure that I'm still highlighting the timber grain, so whitewashing is a perfect way of still highlighting the timber grain whilst reducing that yellowness as well. Here you can see quite a contrast between the stained timber top and the raw timber top. And the stained is just much more subtle and soft and just balances really well with the grey paint. With the stain now applied and that having dried overnight, we can move on to step 6, the waxing. So this step is definitely optional. When I paint with chalk paint, I generally will wax the base just to give it a bit of protection. It gives it a lovely matte sheen, protecting the timber finish and also deepening the colour as well. With the paint now protected, I can move on to protecting the timber with some hemp oil. So this is great because it really conditions that stain that I've used and it adds that kind of soft matte sheen to it as well once dried. And finally, we get to the last step, adding in the hardware. So here I'm using a gorgeous marbled textured pool. So it's got a hammered texture feature in front and it really finishes off that coastal look that I'm going for on this piece. With all that hardware complete, it's now what you've been waiting for, the reveal. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I love working on bedsides. I think they're one of my favorite furniture items to work on because you can be really creative and flexible with the colors, the finishes, and of course the hardware. I think the hardware is one of those aspects that adds a little bit of detail that really elevates the look and can help get you a bit more money in your flips as well. So in this look here, I went really soft and subtle. I used the marble hardware because it added a layer of texture and detail that plainer hardware wouldn't have done, or something in brass would have just been too harsh of a contrast. So using something with a bit of texture that's tactile is quite nice, and it offers something a bit more unique to the piece as well. So pretty much my costings for this piece were $35 for the pair, and paints and the sanding supplies would have been about maybe $15. And then with the hardware, that's actually from my own collection that I'm hoping to launch very soon. So that one didn't cost me too much to put together. So in the end, the overall costings would have been about maybe $65. And with that, selling it for $330, it's a pretty good profit. I found that the best color tones that work for bedsides are things that are a bit more subtle, a bit softer. Anything too bright and vibrant and strong can be a bit overwhelming and can make people a bit more hesitant in selecting your furniture item. So finding a palette that is soft and soothing, or that is a higher contrast with something a bit more subtle like a whitewash top, is a perfect balance for that look. And a lot of the time it's just experimenting and trying things out. It's definitely what I've done over the last few months with my furniture flipping, and I feel like I've gotten comfortable with different style variations and color combinations. I'm excited to share a few more videos on my process of how I choose these color finishes, how I pair different timber finishes and tones together, and just the different styles. So if that's something you're interested in learning more about, please subscribe, and I'd love to see you next time.